Christmas dragon.
The Christmas Dragon with Daniel and Nathanael. Thanks for inviting me to do this, Dr. Klein. You brought up some interesting topics for the night. I'll let you start us off. What are you wanting to get into tonight? Where are we going in Revelation?
Well, a pastor spoke on, of course, they all the Christmas sermons right now, but it is rare you hear a pastor open a Revelation at all, especially during Christmas. When he talked about Revelation 12, which is a short chapter, and there's this dragon chasing the woman, and then we have, the baby who's Christ, and he's showing it like this. Oh, it's a Christmas story right there. And then, but I think there's a lot more there. I want you to help define who the woman is, and not just one child, but it says her other children too later at the end of the chapter. So who are those?
Okay, so the dragon, the Christmas dragon of Revelation 12. I like that. So, all right, let's jump into Revelation 12. I'm gonna share my screen here, and we'll pop onto Revelation 12 here. Let's see. There we go. All right, can you see that? Okay. So the woman and the dragon. And a great sign appeared in heaven: a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and crying out in the pain and agony of giving birth. So we'll pause here and just note, that Revelation is it's very much an astrological text. And when I say astrological, instantly most people, when their mind comes up with the idea of like modern astrology and the paganism associated with that. But
don't even look at the stars.
Don't even look at the stars. It's not like God put them there. The constellations are mentioned throughout the Bible, like the book of Job and different places. So the truth is that God put the stars up in heaven, and Satan takes everything God does and perverts it and makes it into something bad. The Christmas dragon, right? And so what we see in this first verse is
the Christmas dragon.
The Christmas dragon. Yeah. So it tells us a great sign appeared where? In heaven. And heaven is, when you look up in the sky, you're looking at the heavens according to the ancient people. The heavens are, the Shemayim was the sky, and you look up at night and you see these stars. And a woman is referring to the constellation Virgo, which was a virgin. And when it's clothed in the sun, it means the sun is on the woman. She's clothed in it. And so the ancient peoples used to follow the path of the sun, the apparent path of the sun, as it, from our perspective, would travel around the earth, right? And we look up in the sky and you see the sun moving throughout the stars in the heaven, and you can track its movement. You say, oh, well, the sun is here, now the sun is there. And that's how ancient peoples would track the ages of time. So every year you have the spring equinox, the vernal equinox, and you have the fall equinox, or the autumnal equinox. And this is how they would keep track with different ages. So if the sun was up there in the sky in a certain constellation on the equinox, you would say, oh, well, the sun is in the constellation Taurus during the equinox. We're in the age of Taurus. So my point is this is, really easily documented, that we can understand what they were talking about with following the sun at different times of the year. And so now if you look up in the sky and you say the sun is clothing the woman, it means that the sun is in the constellation of Virgo. Now this has nothing to do with the equinox at this moment, right? This is just saying you're looking up in the sky and the sun happens to be in Virgo, because from our perspective, we're going to see each of those 12 constellations throughout the year.
So I understand, is he it's like what the Magi saw, or is this another sign we're going to see in the future?
Oh, yeah, good question. I believe this right here is what the Magi saw.
Okay, that would make sense in the context of the Christmas dragon story. Okay, just making sure.
Christmas dragon story, yes.
I know John is writing much later, so I just want to make sure.
Yeah, John's writing around 96 AD or CE, depending on your convention, and so he's writing many, many, many decades after the birth of Yeshua, of Jesus, our Messiah. But what he's describing is a story that's told in the heavens that pertains to the birth. And when Satan tried to kill our Messiah, if you remember Herod, right, he tried to kill all the kids under 2 so that the new king of Judah would not grow up. Right, so that's this Christmas dragon, so to say, trying to kill the Messiah.
Off-topic question, but do you think it was like a full 2 years, or do you think he was just doing overkill? Like, when do you think that? How close were the Magi? Obviously, they probably weren't there in the manger because it says like he's a small child, and they go to a house. I kind of wondered, like, is it like a full 2 years?
Right, they definitely weren't there at the birth. It could have been up to 2 years. So by the time they saw this sign and they left, let's just assume they were coming from Persia. They could have been coming from different areas, from lower Saudi Arabia. I've heard different theories, but it took them a while to get there. And
Because like
so
Herod's death is like, some people say it's like 4 BCE,
4.
and then I think you said Jesus is 3 CE. So how is,
Yeah, so
if
I
it's
believe
another
Yeshua,
2 years later, that's even more off.
right. This sign that we're seeing right here, the woman clothed in the sun, occurred in 3 BC, September 11th of 3 BC. And so they knew this was happening. The woman is pregnant. She's giving birth. The Messiah is being born. We need to head to Jerusalem. Specifically, we'll follow this star all the way to Bethlehem, and
It's
it'll lead us
crazy
there.
that you can use Stellarium to look that up and know exactly.
You know, we can use
That's
these
another reason
modern...
why you say it's 3 BC.
Yeah, that's the reason. So if we look at this sign again, and we see that if the sun is over Virgo, right, then, this is around time of September, okay, because every month is associated with one of these 12 constellations of the Mazzaroth. Okay, so Josephus wrote during his time that, like Aries, was associated with the springtime. And so March would be the constellation Aries. So if you follow the sun every year, you're going to see every month the sun is in a different one of these 12 constellations. And then it starts over again every year. But about every 2,000 years, the sun is actually moved forward a house. So instead of it being in Aries in March, it's going to be in Aries in the next month. Okay, so that's what you call the sidereal interpretation of the Mazzaroth or the zodiac, when you're actually following the precession of the equinox, where the sun changes houses every 2,000 years, and so it shifts that celestial clock one house over. But if you're using what's called the tropical understanding, you take that snapshot in time and you don't take into account precession, you just keep it that way. And that's what modern day, you look up a horoscope, that's what they're using, a tropical understanding. They're saying every year through all time, we're going to associate each house with one constellation, and it's never going to change. So Capricorn is always December. Aries is always March. You see what I'm saying? Leo is like, I forget if it's June or July, right? So it stays that way. And that's why you say, if you're born in September, you're a Virgo or a Libra, right? Well, actually, according to sidereal, you're completely wrong. But if you're going to go with tropical, sure. Right, so that's what we're talking about here. And so I got a little deep there, but this sign here, you've got Virgo with the sun in it and the moon under her feet and 12 stars on her head. So right next to Virgo is Leo, and it's got about 10 stars in it. It's impossible to know exactly how many stars Leo had in the first century, like as far as what they counted that Leo had, right? But what you do have is you have planets, and planets move, and planets, the word planetais in Greece means wandering star. What they saw were fixed stars and moving stars. Fixed stars are what we think of stars today. Moving stars are what we think of planets today because they move. When we look up, we can see the planets move. So they had Virgo with the sun in it, and the moon just under her feet, and then enough stars, enough planets to make it appear as if there were 12 stars on her head. And so this gives you a snapshot in time, and you can go back into Stellarium and find that snapshot.
Yeah, I remember you showing me this. I think we might have a video. We'll have to link it in the comments there somewhere. Give people a visual.
And so now John's connecting this with the birth of Messiah. So this woman is pregnant, this virgin, and she's crying out in pain in the agony of giving birth. Kind of reminds me of Genesis when God told Eve that she would give birth. There would be pain in childbearing, right? So we have a throwback here already to the garden, the relationship between Eve and Satan. But here we also have a relationship between Mary and Satan, Mary who literally was giving birth to the Messiah here. Does that make sense? So when we get down further in this chapter and it talks about this war between the dragon and the woman and her seed, we can see that on the surface level, it's about Mary. On a deeper level, it's about Eve. And on a middle level, it's about Sarah and the promised Messiah that would come from Abraham through Sarah, right? So there's this matriarchal line or promise that exists in Scripture. And if we go back to Genesis 3, I'm going to pop over to Genesis 3 and share. And then you'll see here, we're going to go down to verse 16. To the woman he said, I will sharply increase your pain in childbirth. In pain you will bring forth children. And then we go down and where does he talk to Satan? Here he is. So, for Yahweh said to the serpent, go down a little bit, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. So, I'm going to stop sharing. So if you think about what seed is, typically we think of seed is the line of a male family. Talk about seed. So the DNA is passed down from father to son, and that's where how inheritances are transferred. But what we see here is it's talking about the seed of woman. So that's an interesting thing. It's like this promise that there would be some special Messiah that would come through a woman, and that they would be in enmity with each other. So Satan's offspring versus Eve's offspring, or the promised offspring.
It almost makes sense if you look at like Abraham, because Abraham had two sons, right? So is it Ishmael or is it Isaac? Mm-hmm. But if it comes from Sarah, then yeah, it can only be Isaac.
Right. Yeah, that's the key thing, right? He thought he could go around God's promise or make it happen quicker, right? But God had other plans. And so you have through Sarah, and then you have Isaac and Rebekah, and then you have Jacob and Rachel. And so you have this line to the Messiah. And there's this special connection there to the mother.
So I was reading like the Torah portions. It was a couple weeks back, but like with Esau, it just hit me strange. Like they're so different. They're supposed to be twins, but they're so different. It's almost like God was splitting out different qualities there in the chromosomes. I don't know. Like, and Esau, it was red. It was a picture maybe of Rome, and even Herod is in Edomite.
Yeah, that word.
Arab and Edomite, so he's got a bit of Ishmael
and
Esau in him.
Isn't that interesting? The two major enemies of Israel are Edom and Ishmael.
And he's in the Christmas story, so I guess it's relevant.
Yeah, and by the way, this is not an endorsement of Christmas. This is kind of a making fun of Christmas to all there. So don't be too offended, but how dare I make fun of Christus Maesse, the Mass of Christmas? Well, I'm not Catholic. I don't do Mass. I don't believe in the Eucharist.
I want you to get into that more, too. But
all right, we'll get into that.
Let's fly a little faster. Because there's the other sign. Is that also something we've observed? Because it says there's another great sign of the dragon.
So we're going to go back to Revelation 12 here. So now another sign appeared. Oh, this is good.
Okay.
Another sign appeared in heaven, a huge red dragon with 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 royal crowns on its heads. His tail swept a third of the stars from the sky, hurling to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, ready to devour her child as soon as she gave birth. So I think we can all agree the dragon represents Satan. But this sign, again, it says in verse 3, appeared in heaven. So this is an astrological or astronomical thing to look at. A huge red dragon with 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 royal crowns. Now, without getting too far into this, because it would take too much time, this is pointing to Rome, with 7 heads being the 7 forms of government of Rome. that it's had throughout time, and eventually having an eighth. And then the 10 horns, going back to the book of Daniel, the 10 horns. Yes, the different tribes that came out of the fall of Rome, and 7 royal crowns on his heads. So we're going to look up to this astrological sign, and we look up into what's called the northern wheel of precession. So I talked about the 12 constellations, right? And so I'm going to pull up this picture here. Here's these 12 constellations: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo. So you can see these 12 constellations. And from the perspective of Earth, you're looking up and you see the sun. Oh, the sun's in Leo right here. Or you look up and you see, oh, the sun's in Libra, right? So now what we have is this wheel of stars. And then when you go up to celestial north, so if this is the Earth, and this wheel is situated at about a 23-degree angle from the Earth. But if you go up celestial north, straight north from the Earth, you're going to hit another wheel up here. Can you see my cursor as it moves?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so if you follow
Is that
celestial
the whole
north,
wheel within the wheel?
there's a wheel within the wheel that Ezekiel spoke of, right? And Ezekiel pointed out the 4 guardians of heavens, as the ancient knew them. He pointed out the 4 cherubim with their 4 faces. He had the face of a lion in Leo. He had the face of a man in Aquarius. You had the face of a bull in Taurus. And then you had the face of an eagle in Scorpius. What? Eagle? So Scorpius represents this scorpion that has the sting of death. But death is swallowed up in victory by what? An eagle. And there's a deacon constellation associated with Scorpius known as Aquila, which is the eagle. And so the ancient people understood Aquila to represent this place on the Mazzaroth. So there you have the lion, man, bull, and eagle. Those are the 4 guardians with their primary stars associated with each of them. So, you got Regulus as the primary star here, Fomalhaut, no, not Fomalhaut, what's the one in Aquarius? Fomalhaut, I think. And then you have Antares in Taurus, and what's the one in Scorpius? Anyways, I forget, but my point being, you got this wheel, and you got this wheel up here, which is the northern celestial wheel. Now, what's up in here? A giant constellation called Draco, which is a big dragon.
It's probably a dragon.
Now, could you guess how much... Yes, the Christmas dragon lives up there. Yeah. But he fell from that place in heaven. We're going to get there. Well, what percentage of the space in the northern celestial wheel, so if you look at each of these here, each one of these takes up 1/12, because there's 12 of them, 1/12 of this wheel. How much percentage of the northern celestial wheel did Draco take up?
Pretty big, right?
It's very big. Well, it took up about 1/3 of the stars.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh!
I should have guessed
So
that.
now, if we go back...
You're going to have fun making a Christmas dragon thumbnail, I feel.
Yes.
It's going to be decked out in lights.
So, if we go back to Revelation 12, verse 4, his tail swept 1/3 of the stars from the sky, hurling to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, ready to devour her child as soon as she gave birth. So, yes, Satan tried to kill the Messiah through Herod by trying to kill him before he could grow up and become king of Judea. Now, where did the woman flee? Right? The woman, verse 6, fled to the wilderness. Her and Joseph and Yeshua went to Egypt, and she was protected there. And so you have this fulfillment of going to the wilderness, but you have an even greater fulfillment of the seed of the woman, which refers to not just Yeshua, but all those who follow Yeshua, right? His descendants, the sons of God. So you and me, the ecclesia, the called out ones, the church, the people. And they are protected for this time of 1,260 days. Now we see this number show up several other places in Scripture. It's also known as a time times half a time, or 42 months. But before I go too far, this third of the stars fell from the sky. Do you remember how earlier I talked about how an age represented about 2,000 years? And so what that means is that you're on planet Earth and you look up during the autumnal equinox in the fall, and you see that on the equinox, one day of the year, you look up and you see the sun, and the sun is in Leo. 2,100 years from that moment, on that equinox, 2,100 years later, you're going to look up and you're going to see that the sun is in a different constellation. It's going to go to Virgo. You're going to see it's going to go the opposite direction. It's going to go to Cancer. And it's going to go Gemini, Taurus, Aries, and Pisces. Now, during the time of Yeshua, when they looked up in the heavens on the autumnal equinox, they saw that the sun was in Aries. Josephus records this. So about 2,000 years after this age of Aries began, which wasn't long after Yeshua, you would look up and see the sun was in Pisces, and that was a different age.
It's a symbol of a fish as well.
It's a symbol of a fish, two fish actually. And this is the time of the Gentiles, the fullness of the Gentiles coming in, being fishers of men. And then about 2,100 years from the start of this age, you're going to look up and the sun will have its equinox in Aquarius. Okay, so now that's what everybody talks about, this mystical age of Aquarius, right? And so the point being is that these ages take place. Now,
it's not that Aquarius is pagan, it will be the millennial reign, right?
I think so.
Or after.
Yeah, and so I think technically, I don't want to get too far into detail, but like an age, you can have cusps which can last a few decades between ages, where you technically cross over into this house at 30 degrees associated with each one. So we've already crossed over the 30-degree marker into Aquarius. By 53 we did that. Okay, so we're already technically there, but ages can have a period of time before they come into fruition. But that's another issue that we don't need to really get into. But my point in saying this is to understand the concept of ages is related to the precession of the equinox. In other words, the sun precesses and moves along this line according to the changing of time through the ages. The same thing happens in the inner wheel up here, the northern celestial wheel.
So
and it takes a long time.
The autumnal equinox?
What's that?
The autumnal equinox is the middle one? The one you're talking about here with Leo and Virgo and all that.
Actually, I'm sorry, I did make a mistake. It's the vernal equinox is what determines the astrological ages, and that's during the spring. So the equinox is basically the day that the day is equal to the night. The length of the day is equal to the length of the night. Technically, that's an equilux, not an equinox, but it's like a day apart. Whereas what we're looking at now on Christmas is the solstice. So you have the summer solstice, the winter solstice. This is when either the night is the longest that it's ever going to be, or the day is the longest it's ever going to be. The equinoxes are when the day and nights are equal. So these four markers are turnings of the year, and in Hebrew it's called a tekufa. So the turning of the year, when it turns and changes, it shifts, right? So these four markers, kind of like how the moon has phases, so does the sun. It has its phases throughout the year. Okay, does that make sense? But there's phases to the northern celestial wheel up here as well. And so this northern celestial wheel is going to... what's the North Star? Let me ask you this. What's the North Star right now? Yeah. But what was the North Star 10,000 years ago? It changes. Because this wheel that we're talking about up here in the heavens, it moves really slow. That's called the wobble of the Earth. All right, so it slowly wobbles because the Earth is doing this. It's turning, but it's also doing this. and it creates this wobble effect really slowly. So the celestial north creates another wheel that turns really slowly. So you got this wheel out here that moves, goes around these 12 houses every year. Okay, and you got this wheel up here that goes real slow. I think it takes like 24,000 years or something for it to go all the way around. So the point is that up here,
You said it takes, what, 10,000 years for that North Star to change? Well, do we
for the
even have
North
any
Star that changed.
documented history?
So the North Star is whichever star is closest to technically celestial north at the time. Right now it's Polaris, but that will change. I forget what the actual years are when things are, but I think it was 6 to 10,000 years ago, I forget when it was, that Thuban, the main star of Draco, was the North Star. At one point, the North Star on the celestial mountain of God, if you look at heaven as its own kingdom, and you look at the stars as a representation, a visual representation of that kingdom, not the actual thing itself, but a visual representation, then the Mazzaroth would be this outer position, but then up here, the northern celestial wheel would be this highest heights of heaven, right? So the highest heights or the furthest reaches of the celestial mountain, like the top of the mountain. Remember what it says Satan tried to do? He tried to climb.
Flat Earther would call it the dome.
The dome, right? Yeah. I wanted some time to make fun of flat earthers, but we won't.
I was gonna say, if the North Star changes, though, that's kind of shoots a hole in their dome, so to speak. It's a crack in the dome.
Cracking. Every hole in the dome is really just a star. It's just where God pokes a hole in the box that we live in and lets the light in. Yeah, no. So yeah, the North Star changes over time, and at one point the North Star was Thuban. Now,
it's a Jack Johnson song. Life is so much easier when stars are just the holes in heaven, or something. That's a Jack
is that what it was?
Lyric. Yeah, made me think of that.
Now, Thuban is also known as Alpha Draconis. Draconis, the dragon, right? So when was its... Okay, it's been the North Pole star from the 4th to 2nd millennium BC. There we go. Okay, 4th to 2nd millennium. So 4,000 to 2,000 BC. Roughly around creation time. So you have creation, where Satan, Lucifer, is this great morning star. He holds this great position in the heavens. He's this worship angel. He's adorned with stones. He's beautiful. And then he falls from heaven. So he loses his position on the celestial mountain, and he is banned. So what's happening is the star story God put there is telling us, it's confirming what the scripture is telling us. It's not for us to follow or to worship or bow down to. It's telling the story God wants. It's confirming the story God's telling us. Right? So now we go.
Interesting.
Yes.
So the Morning Star is another name for the North Star?
No.
Okay.
The morning star refers to the heliacal rising of a star. What that means is it's the first star that you see in the morning before the sun comes up. It beats the sun, right? And so sometimes the most commonly referred to morning star is Venus, but that changes throughout the year and throughout time. And so a morning star is basically, it's a title, it's something, it's a recognition, right? So like the Egyptians used to track the star Sirius. When it was the morning star, they would base their calendar around Sirius, and it would influence their navigation of the seas. And so like these morning stars were important, but not to get too wrapped up in it. The point of it is to say that it's a title or a position of nobility and recognition. Does that make sense? So if I say you're the morning star, it means you're pretty awesome. But if I say that Yeshua is the morning star, it means he's pretty awesome. So it doesn't mean Satan and Yeshua are the same, even though they're both called morning stars. It's just a title saying, okay, you're pretty cool, pretty awesome, right? You have prominence. So I'm trying to find a good picture of the northern celestial wheel. And I'll see if I can demonstrate something. Here's a decent one. Yeah. So that if the morning star is the first star you see before the sun goes up, what's the evening star? So it would be the first star you see when the sun goes down. Now, let's see if I can share this screen. Where is the one I'm looking for? Yeah, that one. Okay. You see that? Okay. So do you see Draco right here? Right. So he's taking up this whole section of the pizza. Okay. And then yes, this pizza up in the north. And let's see if I can find. Is this Thuban? Yeah, right there. The tail of the serpent, right? His tail swept a third of the stars from heaven. Okay. Now, who is sitting right here? The king, Cepheus. And he casts the dragon out of heaven. Now, let's see. I forget where Polaris is. Yeah, somewhere in the middle. Anyways, so this is celestial north, and it's going to shift into a different star. At one point, this right here was celestial north. Do you see what I'm saying? So it moves around a little bit. Make sense? All right, so maybe we can jump back over to Revelation 12, or do you have comments so far? Okay, so let's jump back over to Revelation 12. So now he swept his tail, Thuban, swept a third of the stars from the sky, hurling to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, ready to devour her child as soon as she gave birth. She gave birth to a son, a male child, who will rule the nations with an iron scepter. We all know who that is. Yes, Yeshua. And her child was caught up to God in his throne. Now Yeshua ascended to heaven, right? His ascension. And the woman fled into the wilderness. So this is interesting because we know that Mary went to Egypt, but this is saying the woman fled to the wilderness after the child was caught up to God into his throne. Right? So this is telling two stories. It's telling the story of Mary's flight to Egypt, but it's also telling the story of the church, right? The bride of Messiah, the continuation of the messianic line, right? And where she is nourished for 1,260 days. Now I understand this personally using the day for a year principle that's used in the 70 weeks of Daniel and the Ezekiel. How many years is it? 380, 390 years. Anyways, point being, I understand this to be 1,260 years in which Satan has the power in this world to persecute the saints and come against them. And I understand this. Yeah, go ahead.
I forget which gospel it is, even looking at like the Christmas story, like it says they were going to come back to Judea, but then they heard that Archelaus, Herod's son, was also murdering people, so they decided to stay longer in Egypt or go to the Galilee. So it would have been longer probably than those.
Okay. This was when? Sorry, go ahead. When was that?
This was after they go to Egypt.
Gotcha.
Right? They flee. There's the slaughter of the innocents.
Yes. So
Dies.
they would have been there.
His son Archelaus takes over, and the story there is he's married to a Samaritan woman. He only reigns for like a couple of years. And that's how they had to deal with Rome. It became a tetrarchy. If the sons lost control, then Rome would take over. So that's why we see Jerusalem controlled by Pilate. It was under Roman control, where his other sons, Philip and Antipas, were in control of the other regions of Israel.
Okay. Right, the tetrarchy. 4 different regions, is that right?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Was the 4th one.
Yeah, Yeah, so they were there. You're saying they were probably there shorter or longer than than the 3.5 years.
I think the point of the gospel story was that they weren't going to go back to Jerusalem anymore.
Hmm.
That's why they went more to the Galilee,
Yeah, that makes sense.
to Nazareth.
Grew up grew up there. Yeah, so then we get, a little bit further and we see verse 7 says, and his angels with them. Now, here's an interesting thing. Okay, this just says that the dragon was hurled down to the earth. But if we go back up here, his tail swept a third of the stars from the sky, hurling to the earth. So he's already hurled down to the earth, but here you see it again. So it's telling you the story, it's like recapitulating the story from a different angle. It's describing how Michael fought against the dragon and the angels fought back. And so Michael lost his ability to go to heaven. This is how I understand it personally, and I could be wrong, but the way I understand this is that after the ascension of Messiah, Satan no longer had right to appear before Yahweh in heaven to accuse the saints, right? Because Satan is known as the accuser of the brethren. But if we are made righteous in Christ, in Messiah,
Okay, you said
Satan,
Michael.
yeah,
Michael can't go back to heaven.
I'm sorry, Satan can't go back to heaven. Michael threw him out of heaven. That makes sense.
I'm not going to get in because I know you have this
Oh,
other identity for Michael.
the Michael Yeshua connection.
Yeah, I'm sure you don't want to go there right now. I'm
Yeah,
just
that's
wondering
it.
what the time frame is here. This is all resurrection or ascension,
Right. So I
this
believe
war,
so
or did this war
when
take place Genesis more?
right. So I think that there are two issues to look at here. Let me just touch on this. Verse 10. I heard a voice in heaven saying, "Now have come the salvation, power, and the kingdom of our God, and the authority of his Messiah. For the accuser of our brothers has been thrown down, he who accuses them day and night before our God. They have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. Woe to the earth and the sea, with great fury the devil has come down to you, knowing he only has a short time." And then he pursues the woman. So again, this is a recapitulation because he's pursuing the woman now who had given birth to the male child, and then she flees to the wilderness. You see how this section that we just read is a recapitulation of what was just said in this section? It's just telling it from a different perspective. And the scriptures do that a lot. This is describing a little bit more of an astrological symbol, and this is describing a spiritual event that occurs in the heavens, right, where Satan is cast down. Now, if Satan is cast down after the ascension, well, what happened way back in the garden when Satan tempted Eve? Was he not already cast out of heaven at that point? And so I had to kind of wrestle with this a little bit and come to the conclusion where I'm at right now is that there are two things going on here. Satan, this guardian cherub, rebelled against God and tempted mankind and caused a lot of disturbance on the earth and was there accusing mankind. Like when he came before God and said, "What about Job? If you test him hard enough, he'll turn on you," right? Satan has always been this accuser, even way before the time of Messiah's incarnation.
There's nothing necessarily wrong with that, right? Like he wasn't cast from
Like,
heaven just because he's
I see.
accusing. Because God had a council, and that was kind of their job. They're to accuse. Even though he had fallen in his heart and God knew that, he had still not physically rebelled, is how I would say it.
Yeah, that's a. I mean, this is where we get into opinion. It's hard to really nail it down because, I mean, some people may theorize even that Satan was simply a puppet that God used, to test mankind. I'm not there, however, but like, I personally think that
Kind of
Satan
makes
did.
God out to be the bad guy.
Yeah, I think
I don't
Satan
like that.
did rebel. I think angels are given free will. and just like humans are. Yeah. So I think free will is key to this, and I think that Satan did rebel, and then I think Satan lost his position on the celestial mountain, and that was way back in the time of creation, like we talked about with the vision in the star, like the time frame there around 4000 BC. But so creation of the world during this creation week, and then during the time of Satan tempting Eve and leading man to commit sin. And then Satan so Satan is in rebellion as God, but it's like this. God is like, all right, I'm going to play this out, and I'm going to show you mankind can and will choose to love me. Not all of them, but many of them. And that's what this is all about. It's about free will and choosing. And so God says, okay, you go right ahead. I'm going to let you rebel, and I'm going to let you do this, and I will prove to you that you're wrong. So Satan then brings, does all these things on the earth. He says, go and test Job, and Job, my Redeemer lives, right? So he even knew. But the Messiah came and put Satan to the ultimate test. Satan thought he was going to put Yeshua to the test, right, when he tempted him in the wilderness. But Yeshua showed him who was truly the morning star, who was truly King of heaven. And then he said, before he went to the cross, he says, I'm about to cast out the ruler of this world, right? Now, was he casting out the ruler of this world from heaven, or was he casting out the rule of this world from earth? And I say both. Here's why. I think at that moment of the ascension, Yeshua cast Satan out of heaven, in the sense that Satan no longer could come before God to accuse the saints, because the saints were covered by Yeshua's work. So he had no right to even come up. The game was over. Done. Yeah, when Stephen's being stoned, he looks up to heaven and he sees Yeshua standing at the right hand of God. When God stands, he judges. So he's judging the nation of Judea, and Yeshua's up there standing in heaven in power and glory, judging. So now, after conquering Satan, after defeating sin and death, now he has earned, so to say, the right to open the seals of Revelation. Who can open the seals? No one. Yes, the Lamb can open the seals, right? So he starts opening the seals. And that is when the seals start to become open. Yeshua is progressively driving out the ruler of this world. What do the seals, trumpets, and bowls do? They are basically opening up history, and they're saying, when I open this seal, I as God am going to do this on the earth, and it's going to lead to prophetic fruition of me driving the enemy out up until the final messianic era. So it's not a one-time event where now that the cross is here, it's done and we're going to heaven. It's this progressive event of, well, I'm going to open 7 seals, and I'm going to blow 7 trumpets, and I'm going to pour out 7 bowls. And you're going to see each of these, and each one of these is going to be my progressive fulfillment of driving the enemy out of this world until I take over this world. That's how I understand it.
How much does the Christmas dragon know? Because it says the dragon was ready to devour the woman and her child. These magi that came, like Herod had no idea about this. This Messiah being born, and we think of these pagan magi. Do you think they were pagan? Do you think they were Jewish at all, or top
It's
five?
really hard to know for sure. Right. I've heard a few theories.
In the whole intertestamental period, there's a majority of Jews in Egypt and in Babylon. There's only a small remnant that returned to Israel.
Right. I mean, well, first of all, Satan is not omniscient, right? Maybe he does, but Satan is not omniscient. We tend to think that Satan is behind every bad thing, like Satan's on everyone's shoulder. No, he's not omnipotent, he's not omniscient, he's not omnipresent. So, yes, he's a powerful spiritual being, but he can't foresee all these things happening. All he knows is the God said that the seed of Eve is going to crush his head, right? So he's going to do everything he can to take out Messiah based on what he knows. But God's always like several steps ahead of Satan on this. Now, who are the Magi? That word Magi, I believe it refers to the Magian tribe. It was a tribe of basically astrologers, people who studied number of wise men. And if you remember when Daniel was taken, he was taken to Babylon and he was made head over all the wise men because he could interpret Nebuchadnezzar's dream. And then he was taken by Darius as well to Susa, where he lived out the rest of his days. And he would have some acolytes. And perhaps, these magi were basically those who carried the information that Daniel gave. It's hard to say for sure what exactly their influence was. Were they Nabateans? Were they Zoroastrians? Who knows what they were? I doubt that they were strict pagan Zoroastrians, but I think that they understood the stars and they understood what it meant when they saw the stars. And so whatever mystery is there, it's there for us in the scriptures to wonder about and to be curious about, right? And to study for ourselves. Yeah. He must, because he's pretty mad and he knows he only has a short time. So, let's see. Yeah, that pretty much covers Revelation 12.
Yeah, I was just going to ask. So,
yeah.
The woman, it's like you said, it's Mary. Post Christmas dragon, what is the woman? Would you say it's strictly like Judaism? And her children would be the church? Or what do you see there? At the end of 12 it says the dragon can't get the woman, so he goes to make war on her offspring, those who uphold the testimony of Yeshua and uphold the law or whatever, something like that.
Right. Okay, so first you see here, verse 13, the dragon saw he'd been thrown to the earth. He pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child, but the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle to fly from the presence of the serpent to her place in the wilderness. And again, death is swallowed up in victory. You have the eagle, where she was nourished for a time, times, and half a time. So now we see a time times half a time is equivalent to the 1,260 days that we saw here. Now, a time times and half a time is clearly a reference to a year and a half. But did you know a year and a half never has 1,260 days in it? Ooh. So that should clue us in here that we're talking about a symbolic period of time. And this is one of the reasons I employed the day for a year principle here. Because a month in Scripture is never 12 30-day months. So the Scriptures in Genesis tell us that we're to use the sun, moon, and stars for our timekeeping. Sun to rule the day, the moon to rule the night. And the point is that when we determine our years and our months, we need to use both the sun and the moon. A long story short is a lunar year has about 354 days. A solar year has about 365. And so you have to intercalate the two to get them to match up. And the way that you do that is about every 2 to 3 years, you add in a 13th month. And what that does is intercalates your years so that the moon and sun stay on the same general schedule and your seasons don't change. And so because of that, a year never has exactly 1,260 days. So this tells me this is a symbolic number. And that says I should probably look at this as years rather than strict literal days. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, so now that we've covered that.
Page with that.
All right. So then the mouth, from the mouth of the serpent spewed water like a river. Now, I won't spend time on this, but water like a river or floods so many times refers to military force, okay, trying to violently kill something. So it's trying to kill this woman and sweep her away in the torrent, but the earth helped the woman and opens its mouth to swallow up the river the dragon had poured out from his mouth.
So I did do my homework and read your book.
Okay.
And I believe you said this is the Napoleonic Wars, no?
I mean, not necessarily. So, I mean, the Napoleonic Wars are part of that. I think that this
That
1000.
ended the 1260
Yes,
years
yes, that
Napoleon
time period, this French Revolution time period.
posing the Pope.
Yes, that's right. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. So when the earth opened up its mouth and swallowed up the river.
You need to read your own book, Daniel.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's a general reference to God saving his people, providing a way of escape for them throughout this entire 1,260 years.
And I always say it wrong because I say that's the end of the Great Tribulation. It's not the end of the Great Tribulation. It's just the end of the severe persecution.
Right. So this 42 months is the same time period that the Antichrist is given authority to prevail in warfare over the saints. That's important because the tribulation is longer. Tribulation is the entire time period from Messiah until his second coming. But the persecution, the time in which the Antichrist has power and authority to prevail in warfare against the saints, is 1,260 years. And during that time, God provides a way of escape. Just like when Korah rose up to try to usurp the priesthood from Aaron and Moses, God opened up the earth and swallowed up Korah and his household. All right, so here we see that the apostate priesthood of Roman Catholicism, which tried to usurp the priesthood of God, the Levite priesthood, and claim it as their own, institute their own sacraments, and do away with God's laws and his times and his holy days. God had provided a way of escape so that the true body of Messiah could flee and the earth would swallow up Korah and his rebellion. So it would be a time of intense persecution, but the believers would escape. So long story short, the woman and her children, the woman refers to the promised seed through the woman. Her children is that seed. And here's how they are defined. Those who keep the commandments of God, Torah, and hold the testimony of Yeshua, faith. It's faith and works, not faith or works, not one without the other. Works cannot obtain your salvation, but faith without works is dead. They go hand in hand. So the point is that we're citizens of God's kingdom, we obey his laws, and we have faith in Messiah to save us. And that's the clearest definition of the promised seed, the true Israel. Now, does that discount other people who struggle in these areas? No, because some of us... No, I 100% think that's right, because number one, you have two... Okay, you have two... I'm going to say this, it's going to shock people, and then I'm going to bring it back to center. There are two Messiahs, okay? Messiah ben Joseph, which is known as the Ephraimic Messiah, and Messiah ben David, right? So you have suffering servant, conquering king. Now the rabbis thought that they were two different people. That was their mistake. It's one person fulfilling both roles. Yeshua fulfills both roles. He came first time as a suffering servant, which is the Ephraimic Messiah. Ephraimic means Ephraim. Ephraim is a synecdoche of Joseph. So Joseph is a suffering servant. He was thrown into the pit by his brothers, then sold into slavery, brought to prison in Egypt, rose up, became prince, and then was able to save his brothers, brought salvation to his brothers during the famine. They didn't recognize him. He had to tell them who he was, and they cried out, "Oh my goodness, this was you, Joseph? We've missed it this whole time, and you saved us." There's your picture of Judah not recognizing the Ephraimic Messiah. Now,
Talking to a patient of mine who's Jewish, he was asking a lot about Jesus.
yeah.
I think it's something Christians miss too, because he was asking about, like, why didn't he just want to heal everybody? Like, he wasn't there for that. And, like, that's what he's gonna do. Like, that's why a lot of Jews don't believe it. Jesus was Messiah, because, like, he didn't fulfill anything that Messiah is supposed to do. Like, yeah, I agree. Even Christ means the anointed one. He's anointed to come as that Messiah that the scriptures foretell of. He was there to get the message out. He wasn't there to usher in the kingdom and to heal everybody. I probably assume he was really annoyed. He's like, I'm going to heal you, but it doesn't matter if I heal you if your heart's not right. If you don't get this message, because you're going to die
right?
anyways. Even if I resurrect from the dead, you're going to die again.
Yeah, exactly. It was prophesied that the Son of Man must suffer and be rejected by this generation, and he did. Yeah, so Yeshua fulfilled the role of the suffering servant, the Ephraimic Messiah, and when he returns, he will fulfill that role as the Davidic Messiah. So you have the line of Joseph and you have the line of David. Now we talked about the line of, everybody knows that Yeshua is from the tribe of Judah, so he fulfills the Davidic line. When he comes back, he's going to be the Davidic king, right? But not everybody's on board or understands the line of Joseph connection to Messiah. We know that his stepfather, Joseph, he's literally the stepson of Joseph. He was adopted by Joseph. That means he's legally son of Joseph. But Joseph was also the Davidic line. So there's a symbolism here. But Yeshua also has a lineage connection to the actual Joseph, to Ephraim. So Ephraim is Joseph's son. So Yeshua is both the Davidic and the Ephraimic Messiah. Now he has a connection through a matrilineal descent, not a patriarchal, but a matrilineal descent. So I'm gonna pop up this chart here. Let me see that here. So around 900-ish BC, the kingdom split, right? You have after Solomon, you have Rehoboam and Jeroboam. You have the northern kingdom of Israel and the 10 tribes, and the southern kingdom of Judah, the 2 tribes in Levi. And so here you have Judah represented on the left, Joseph represented on the right. So again, Judah is the line of David, and Israel is the line of Joseph. Now, you have Omri, who had Ahab, and then Ahab and Jezebel have Athaliah. Athaliah intermarries over here onto the Judah side, right? And then Jehu comes in and kills Ahaziah. Athaliah tries to murder all of her grandchildren. But what she doesn't know is that one of the priests smuggles Joash, one of her grandkids, into the castle and hides him.
I need to reread this whole story.
Yeah, for several years.
It's so foreign to me.
I have it written up here. So,
The Lesser Apocalypse.
where was this from? Anyways,
I'll just read your
Ahaziah served for less than a year before he was killed by Jehu. Athaliah seized the throne by murdering her grandsons, eradicating the entire royal family of Ahaziah. She was the only female monarch in Judah's history until 835. Evil woman. So, again, here you have Satan trying to take out the lineage of Messiah, even here, right? So, they thought they had beaten him, but not the only, but up until 835. So, this grandchild was Joash. So, he was smuggled, and you can see this in 2 Chronicles 22. He was hidden at the temple for 6 years. So he survived. He carried David's throne. Now, he didn't carry Joseph's Y chromosome, but he did inherit the recombinant X chromosome from Joseph. So his maternal grandfather was great-great-great-great-grandfather was Joseph, right? Then Jehoiada crowned Joash as king. And then Athaliah and the priests of Baal were executed, and the temple and altars to Baal were torn down by Joash. Now you can see here, Joash fathered Amaziah, who fathered Uzziah, and that's who's mentioned in Matthew's genealogy of Yeshua in Matthew 1:8. So now you can see the line of Judah and David being carried out through Yeshua's lineage, but you also have a connection here through Athaliah, in which, ironically, Satan tried to take out the enemy, and God used to introduce the line of Joseph into Yeshua's genealogy through the matriarchal descent. So now you have both lines represented in Messiah, one representing the patriarchal seed and one representing the matriarchal seed. Isn't that interesting?
All deep.
It's deep and it's fun.
Does that
So
wrap up Revelation 12 there?
it does. But to bring this back to the Christmas dragon, I want to end on a kind of a fun note since we talked about the
For some reason I thought you were
astrology.
going to say a song. You were going to grab your guitar.
Yes, some sonic therapy. Christus Maesse, which is Old English for Christ's Mass, which is a Roman Catholic institution. So this Christ's Mass, you have three masses that the Roman Catholic Church instituted for basically for that they use on Christmas. And so you have one in the evening, I think, one in the midnight, one during the day. So
Surprised with the Reformation that all this stuff got carried on
yeah, I
to
mean,
the Protestant church.
a lot of people were against it. I think Martin Luther was actually for some of the Christmas stuff, but and then I think others were like criticizing him for that, but I don't know. That's something I'll have to brush up on. But
Well, he's got some weird stuff anyway. He was anti-Semitic.
yeah, I don't look to him for advice, right? But this English word Christmas, when we say Merry Christmas, which I don't say, right? It's a shortened from a form of Christ's Mass, which I believe is recorded in 1038, was where Christus Maesse comes from. And that word Maesse, it comes from the Latin Missa, which is the Eucharist. So what it is that you're saying Christ's Eucharist, and the Eucharist is the belief that the this wafer that they serve transubstantiates into the actual flesh of Jesus, right? So they believe you're eating his actual body, which we know in Torah is cannibalism and it's completely forbidden. And that the wine transubstantiates into his actual blood, which also is drinking blood, which is absolutely forbidden in Torah. So these are absolutely pagan rites that when you say Mass, you are introducing a pagan rite. So that alone disqualifies any Mass or Christ's Mass. But what's interesting to me here is I'm going to see if I can share this screen real quick.
I stopped caring about the whole pagan Christmas, but then I started thinking about everything you said about the papacy. I'm like, forget about pagan origins. What about like papal origins
Right.
of Christ's Mass? Because that's the true enemy. And if this is something they're pushing, or distorting, I don't know. Because it's like, yeah, this is the whole thing. Like, oh, we got to reclaim Christmas. But like, is there something to reclaim here
Right. Well, I mean,
besides the gospel stories here?
let me be clear. To all my brothers and sisters in Christ, go to a church on Sunday and love Jesus. When they do Christmas, they're not intentionally participating in idolatry. They're not trying to deny the work of Messiah and participate in a pagan rite. Okay? But what I'm trying to show is that Satan has intentionally used these sorts of things to introduce rituals so that people are completely numb, completely blind and numb to what God has for them in the holy days that he has prescribed for us. Right? That you can actually read about in Scripture. Right? The holy days, the Moedim, the set apart appointed times. But because we're engrossed in Roman Catholic rituals like Christmas and Easter, we're essentially what we're doing is we're wearing the wedding ring of Roman Catholicism instead of the wedding ring of faithful obedience to God in his appointed times. So once you become aware of that,
It's the core
it's the
of rebellion.
usurpers, it's the apostate priesthood. once you become aware that you're engaging in rituals that declare fidelity to one priesthood, then you have to make a decision. Do I want to continue in that? Or do I, now that I'm not ignorant of that, do I want to declare my fidelity to the one true God by engaging in his sacraments, not the apostate priesthood's sacraments? Does that make sense? And we can debate Christmas origins to Saturnalia, Sol Invictus, to Mithras, to whatever you want to, whatever ancient mystery religion you want to call it. We can debate that till the cows come home. But at the end of the day, when you become aware of what the wedding ring is for God versus what the wedding ring for the apostate priesthood, then you have to kind of make a choice of, well, do I want to continue to engage in that, or do I want to just continue what I feel comfortable with because I grew up that way? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I try to not care about it because I see so many people. Last thing I do is want to get into it.
Yeah.
But I get very tired at the end of this season. I remember at one point I'm like, do you know what Protestant means? It means protest. You protest Catholicism. Why would you want to do something that's Catholic?
Right. And
I immediately regretted saying it, but I'm like, I just had enough.
Yeah, you get to a point where it's so hard. It's like it's pushed down your throat. Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas. And Christians feel like they're persecuted if somebody says Happy Holidays. You're not persecuted if somebody says Happy Holidays to you. If you're trying to force Merry Christmas to somebody, you're the one trying to persecute that person, right? So let's all just chill with the whole, everybody's out to get me scenario here. But, yeah, so anyways, let me just go back to this Mass thing, because we talked about Christ's Mass. You've got these 3 Masses, or Eucharistic services. And interesting is the third Mass was the one that Pope Leo III used to inaugurate Charlemagne, which began the Holy Roman Empire in 800. So you have the Midnight Mass, which celebrates the eternal birth of Christ. The Dawn Mass, which represents Christ's spiritual birth in the hearts of believers. And the Day Mass celebrates the temporal and bodily birth of Jesus, the Incarnation. Now, if you've read my book, you know I believe that 800, the coronation of Charlemagne and the beginning of the Holy Roman Empire, represents, I'm going to stop sharing for a second, it represents giving breath or life to the image of the beast. And it represents the revival of the mortally wounded head of the beast of Rome. Okay, so
Holy Roman Empire is
the Holy Roman Empire. So what happened beast. In 476, when the Roman Empire was defeated by all these invading tribes, the Imperium was defeated and destroyed and killed. It suffered a mortal wound, a head wound, because the imperial form of government is one of the forms of government. It's one of the heads of this 7-headed beast. You have military tribunals, you have kings, you have emperors, you have consuls, you have different forms of government in Rome. And so what happened is in 476, Romulus Augustulus was the last emperor of Rome when he was defeated and dethroned. The first emperor of Rome was Romulus, but the first king of Rome was Romulus. The last emperor of Rome was Romulus Augustulus. And Rome did not see another emperor until 800 CE, over 300 years later. There was no emperor on the throne of Rome until Pope Leo III, the 8th head, the little horn, crowned Charlemagne. And what did he call him? Augustus. Now, Augustus means emperor, highest form of emperor. So there was no Augustus for over 300 years until Pope Leo III. And how did he do that? He did it on the third Mass of Christmas in 800 CE. He crowned Charlemagne and gave breath or life, incarnation, which is what the third Mass represents. He gave incarnation to this head of the beast. He revived the imperial head of the Roman Empire. He brought back the imperium, which created the Holy Roman Empire. And from that moment forward, the harlot rode the beast, and they volleyed for power, but ultimately the papacy outruled the imperium. Right, the eighth head outruled the sixth head for some time, until the 1,260 years were completed in 1798. So we're getting deep into historicism there, but that's why I see a connection here to Christ's Mass and the revival of the mortally wounded head of the beast.
Yeah, I think once you see Revelation talking about Rome the whole time, you see Christmas a little different, because it's all about the papacy.
Right, now, and before, people will say, oh, Hippolytus recognized Christ's birthday on December 25th. Well, actually, he didn't. That was added later by a scribe. And then you say Africanus he said his birthday was December 25th. Well, he wasn't saying that we were supposed to celebrate it. He was just theorizing that it was December 25th. So really, the first time December 25th was considered a commemoration of Christ's birth was, what year was that? And 336, which is a Philocalian calendar used in Rome. So they had December 25th, Christ born in Bethlehem on this calendar. And then they also have in the same document, just a few pages earlier, has the pagan festival on the same day, Natalis Invicti, which is birth of the unconquered sun. They do 30 chariot races that day. So the Sol Invictus, the birth, the unconquered sun. So when the sun when you get to the winter solstice, right, and it's the shortest day of the year, all of a sudden you're resetting the clock. You're back at the Tekufa, where the year starts to turn again, and now the sun is reborn. So that's where they worship the sun, Sol Invictus, right? That's who Constantine worshiped. People say Constantine converted to Christianity. He did not. He created after his supposed conversion, he built Constantinople, created a giant pillar with him at the top with a 7-point radiate crown with himself as Apollo, also known as Helios, also known as Sol, so the sun god. He considered himself to be the sun god incarnate. And so in that same structure, he had what they considered to be one of the relics of the actual crucifix, or the piece of wood from the cross. So they were combining Yeshua, Jesus, with Sol, and making Constantine this figure of the sun god. That was the amalgamation of these two. And I'm gonna
pattern of Greeks, anyways. They had lots of gods, so they just wanted to syncretize it all.
Why not? Let's syncretize it. I know you're getting tired.
Well, it made good for the kingdom too. Then just less fighting going on.
So that's where Sol Invictus comes into this. I just want to briefly, before we close off, I want to touch on Saturnalia, just because of its connection to the astrology portion. Okay, because so Saturnalia was obviously in there. You have the word Saturn. And so it didn't fall on the solstice, right? So that's the big argument. People say that, this has nothing to do with Saturnalia, because the solstice, was on the 25th, but Saturnalia was from December 17th until December 23rd. So it wasn't associated with the 25th. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to share a screen here and go back to our little Mazzaroth. Alright, so do you see Capricorn over here? Do you know what planet is considered to be the ruler of the house of Capricorn?
I'm going to guess Saturn.
Saturn, right? So remember how we talked about Aries was March?
Saturn for 1,000.
Yeah. So you have March, the next month, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So now, when we get here, the ruling planet of Capricornus, which represents December, is Saturn. So, what is going on here? Well, December 17th marked the start of Capricorn, and it's the house of Saturn. And that's the god honored during that festival of Saturnalia. The sun entered Capricorn close to the time of the winter solstice, and that tied the festival to these solar cycles. So there's a connection here to the solstice. Now, what a lot of people don't know is Saturn in astrology is known as the Great Malefic. That means you can think of that as a bad thing, like malefic, bad, but what it really is it judges, it trains, and it disciplines. Now, what is it? Saturn rewards good behavior, and it punishes bad behavior. In Vedic astrology, it's known as the cosmic judge of karma and discipline.
That's where the naughty list came from.
And now we're seeing the connection here to the naughty and nice. He knows if you've been good or bad. So be good for goodness sake, right? So the festival was held in proximity to the solstice.
You when you're sleeping.
It's a little creepy, right? Mommy. So yeah. So although it's not connected directly to the solstice, it's connected to the month in a system designed around the solstice, right? So Emperor Aurelius, he's the one in 264, 265 or something, who actually moved Sol Invictus to December 25th. So that was definitely going on. So we can argue those topics all day long, but at the end of the day, are you celebrating Mass? Or are you in line with God's holy days that He gives us in the Bible itself? And that's where I stand. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
It's a hard line to walk.
I also see the point of not being bitter all winter long and seeing paganism everywhere.
Yeah.
But I think it is important to think about. It's the Antichrist, essentially. And what is it doing? What is it promoting? And just to separate yourself from such things.
Absolutely. Become aware. Become conscious. And not awakened in this New Age sense of things, but awaken to the truth of Scripture in alignment as best as we can, showing grace and mercy to others. It does no good to just point at my Christian brothers and sisters and say, oh, you're a pagan or whatever. It's nobody responds to that anyways, right? And so yeah, it's hard to walk that line, and so I think we need to walk that line with truth, but also with love and kindness and gentleness in our hearts as we approach it best we can.
Just educating on the Reformation. It's it
Yeah.
all happened for a reason. There was stuff going down. They had to go to a whole new world.
Yeah, they did, literally.
All right, man. Thank you for all that. It's good stuff.
It's been so much fun. Thank you.
Need to do
Let
some
me ramble.
reading and star studying
Yes.
to keep up, but
Fun times.